Hey, my name what? Hardeep Singh. My sign name what? Signs an invisible top knot on the head. I'm a deaf artist. I have been making a lot of art pieces, but this one here is really close to my heart. Within a year or so from my birth, I became deaf. My parents, as well as maybe 10 other members in my extended family, are deaf. My childhood was very worrisome for both my parents. Questions about my future, education, and linguistic development, whether to foster speech or encourage sign language, would plague them constantly. Medical professionals and educators advised my parents against exposing me to sign language, to be cautious or else my future would be ruined. Speech training would ensure a great future ahead. In due course, my parents decided to place me in a mainstream school. At this school, all the people around me, teachers, students, everyone could hear. The teacher and students kept moving their lips around me. Comprehension of the activities was arduous. In the evening, I had speech classes, but to no avail, as I felt speech was not my real and natural mode of expression. It was a grueling challenge. The other students and I did not share a common language. I felt excluded and alone. During the time I spent at home, my parents demanded that I use speech and did not allow me to use sign language with them. The society they belonged to had discriminated them against using sign language, and the same discrimination bled onto me, as I too was deaf like them. This led to generational discrimination within the family. As I matured, I had major identity crisis. Was I supposed to speak or use sign language? This confusion bewildered me all the time while growing up. My parents gradually started realizing their child's knowledge and literacy levels were close to non existent. I was in 5th standard that time. That's when my parents made up their mind to move to a deaf school. The first day at this school was a real shocker for me. There were so many deaf students, all communicating in natural and fluent language of signs. I organically started signing and picked up really fast. I could express myself effortlessly. Finally, I had a taste of my own language. Compared to sign language, speech felt exhausting and bland. Being at a deaf school helped me develop language, make friends, and feel a sense of connection. There were some teachers who strictly followed oralism methods. Some of them even invented signs from their own ideas, which does not qualify as true Indian Sign Language. My schooling was mediocre, we learnt only in bits and pieces, persevered. Do you think I am the only victim of language deprivation? No. Multitudes of deaf children in India experience language deprivation like me. It is estimated that almost 95 to 98% of teachers at deaf schools in India are not proficient in sign language. The teaching methodologies, approach, as well as environment does not match the learning needs of deaf students. When students spending nearly 15 years in these kind of environments step out in society, navigating, interacting, and communicating presents many barriers. Career prospects are seriously affected as well. I used to constantly think that there is no scope for me, and hearing people are always better. I was uncertain about my identity. In 2017, the Centum GRO Initiative came up with a deaf empowerment program. The training focused on themes like deaf culture, deaf identity, deaf history, deaf role model leadership activities, audism, how to tackle discrimination, and several topics. After this 2 month course, the bubble I was stuck in popped. It changed my life, increased my confidence, boosted my awareness. I found my deaf identity, and learned that sign language is a legitimate language. I want to acquaint you with some topics. What does audism mean? The non signing majority's misconceptions of associating language to audition and deafness with disability results into marginalization, patronization, unfair judgments, and blatant discrimination. Autism is experienced by deaf individuals on a daily basis. However, we must resolutely stand up to such discrimination by educating ourselves and spreading awareness within our larger community. On the other hand, what does deaf gain imply? Spoken language users will not be able to communicate through glass as sound can't travel effectively through it. Whereas for two sign language users, this won't be a barrier. Deaf gain. Imagine having to communicate wearing oxygen masks underwater. Impossible, right? But with sign language, you can. There are so many examples of what we call deaf gain. I feel proud to be deaf. I believe we can achieve a lot and should be positive in our outlook. You and I are but the same, humans. As I now reflect about my parents, the various kinds of trainings and resources like deaf identity and culture were not available to them. I realize they are not at fault and this was a long time in the past. However, the times have now changed and we need to vigorously advocate for recognition of sign language and preservation of the deaf identity. Education is not the only issue plaguing the deaf community. Public services like police stations, hospitals, banks, workplaces, etc., are not accessible. Deaf people face communication barriers all the time because the hearing community does not know sign language, which implies the need to locate sign language interpreters at these places to provide access. The number of places which provide communication access for deaf is really low. Imagine dire situations where a deaf person has met with an accident or some kind of illness. Hospital staff will not be able to understand what the deaf person is saying to them. This is a major crisis where communication needs of deaf people are overlooked. The Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act mandates access to public utilities. The deaf community has to lobby with authorities to ensure compliance of the RPWD Act. There are several initiatives and centers which are working on solutions. The Indian Sign Language Research and Training Center is compiling an ISL dictionary and disseminating visual resources. It also conducts diploma level programs for sign language interpreters as well as deaf ISL instructors. I hope more people can utilize these resources. A few schools in Haryana have established early intervention centers which facilitate acquisition of sign language for deaf children as well as their parents. Parents who don't know sign language can come to the center, learn how to communicate, and bond with their child. The Access Mantra Foundation has designed a fully accessible website for deaf people where all content can be found in text as well as sign language. The website is loaded with all kinds of information related to deafness all on one platform. For instance, if you want to search for deaf schools in India, you can find it here. Suppose you need to book an interpreter to come to your locality. The website provides a sign language interpreter directory. There are numerous other resources like this. You can also invite their experts to your region for seminars on various themes. They are advocating for accessibility at public utilities and public services to follow norms of RPWD Act. The National Association of the Deaf India is advocating to get ISL recognized as the 23rd official language of India. Various possibilities are visible. The recognition of Indian Sign Language as a 23rd official language will have definite and positive ripple effects. 1. Public service like police stations, hospitals, banks, etc. will be mandated to provide sign language interpreters, ensuring accessibility for the deaf community. 2. Professionals from these service industries would be able to contact deaf experts who can teach them Indian Sign Language, which means there will be more people knowing and using our language. 3. Medical professionals will need to provide proper consultation to parents of deaf children and ensure that, along with information about hearing aids and cochlear implants, doctors inform parents about the validity and effectiveness of sign language, the importance of early intervention, and bilingualism for deaf children. Parents deserve to have all the options to decide what is best for their deaf child. 4. Early intervention centers are at a nascent stage, which hopefully is replicated in all states and established all over India. 5. As I told you that 95 to 98% of teachers do not use sign language, official status of ISL will mean more deaf experts being hired in schools to teach ISL, as well as promote sign bilingualism approach for education of deaf children. 6. Introducing ISL as a subject like English, Hindi, and Sanskrit, more hearing people will be aware about our language and culture and be able to have basic communication with deaf people, which directly promotes social equality and mutual respect. If ISL is not constitutionalized, it will lead to continued sustenance of the archaic misconceptions which looked at sign language and deaf people as apes, animals, and inhuman. Whereas granting it official status leads to massive social awareness, equality, and respect. What we also need is a major paradigm shift in the mentality of the higher authorities which are hell bent on fixing the ear and the organ. Aids and appliances are important but should not replace or undermine sign language related issues which truly helps deaf people live productive lives. There are deaf people who use aids and implants but have also embraced sign language which helps them navigate successfully within society. Finally, I believe it is critical that the deaf and the hearing communities foster unity. Think if everyone knew our language and had sensitivity towards our culture, it would automatically bring about mutual equality, respect, and awareness. Sign language is not a protected property meant only for the deaf community. It's open for all to use and connect with us. We hope in the coming times the deaf and the hearing communities hold hands and collaborate on novel ideas and initiatives. Your support and allyship are critical for us. Thank you.